urban, modern, manufacturing, secondary, tertiary sectors. I hear this very often, that rural, and by the way, I run this, not run, I mean, I happen to be the token chair of this Transform Rural India initiative. And our premise is, our goal is to try and make villages places of equal opportunity from which people would not feel forced to migrate. So I have not lost hope. We believe that we can revive, create opportunities within villages where people would feel like staying there. But these are very popular, and the reason why such a program comes up is because there is this dominant ethos around you which believes that rural area mein kuch raha nahi hai. Sorry, I shifted into Hindi, but rural areas have become quite hopeless, and it's better to focus on urban. Okay? And changes in rural consumption and even faster changes in rural aspiration. This also is a fairly common point. Probably you have observed it, but small market towns. 10 years back, I've been going to some block towns repeatedly for the last 20 years. Place called Kesla where Pradhan has a campus. So this Kesla town 20 years back, you would be lucky if you got a cup of tea, and certainly very lucky if you could buy pakoras and eat. Today there are 3 pastry shops and 2 what we would call kind of small department stores in the same place. So, and this very common observation, many people say, when I mention this, they say, oh my God, you don't know what has happened here, you don't know what has happened there, so on and so forth, you know. So bike dealers come up, and of course mobile shops come up, and all sorts of things come up, and so on and so forth, you know. So changes in rural consumption, what is driving it, we don't know. And I am now actually launching a research study. I also happen to work in something called Vikas Anvesh Foundation, which is a research unit set up by the TATA Trust, and therefore I am launching now a research into looking at changes in the rural consumption basket as reflected in the market towns. Yes, sir.
So doesn't this one kind of slightly, not exactly contradict, but goes against the initial statement where we say market forces are failing, because here we see that markets are actually expanding in those areas, which is the...
Depends on what market for what, pastries. But market for nutrition are not, market for education are not, market for gender justice are not. So that's what I am saying. So market for what? Yeah? Sir?
My point is that the second one and the last one. So in the second point, we are saying that there is a decline in rural prosperity.
Relative.
Yeah.
Relative decline.
And here we are saying that there is change in rural consumption.
Right.
So is this are two contradictory views?
Look, they exist. I would like you very much to help me make sense of this. But both these things exist. Okay? It's, I mean, I can't wish it away. When I go to a small town, I do see changes there. Now that small town is certainly not catering to me living in Pune, it's catering to people around it, no? Catchment area of that place. So somebody must be buying a bike, somebody must be buying a mobile, somebody must be buying a pastry in order for him to survive. Right? And yet, we know, relatively speaking, the income in that Kesla area, Baitul district area, on an average, a 5-acre farm owner would be earning 60,000-70,000 rupees a year. What's typically monthly salary for an average employee? So therefore, the relative decline is, the relative gap is widening very widely. At the same time, consumption basket also is changing. What makes, how you piece this together is a challenge. What is driving it, I don't know. What proportion of people are included in the new market, I don't know. If I knew, I would have told you. But certainly it is happening, those changes are there to see. And apparently they exist profitably, so there must be wide enough demand. And certainly aspiration, even if no demand. You know, people may be starving, but they have a mobile. No, so they may not have a, certainly they may not, but they certainly may not be keeping their child nutrition, you know, well nourished, but they have a mobile, all right. So people are making vague, ununderstood substitutions between diverse facets of consumption. Okay? Shall I proceed?
Basically, because you took this example of mobile. Mobile, unfortunately, has become a social status today. Every human is an aspirant.
Aspirational, yeah.
You know, we look like, we look towards you and imitate what you are. So in this bargain, perhaps what's happening is the basic need of human nutrition that you took, it is actually taking the second line, and this is taking this is where I believe the whole market forces also
Yeah, sure.
play a very important role in making people, so to say, as rich as well as the poor man.
So we need to, as I said, we need to probably understand in detail, complex details of what exactly is happening on the ground. You know, some people will say mobile he needs because from the mobile he gets livelihood, from the mobile he gets connectivity and can get his job much more easily. So it's a tool for enhancing his productivity. No? So that could be an explanation. Another explanation, like you are saying, it's a status symbol. We don't know. It will vary from individuals and from places and so on and so forth. I know rickshawalas, cycle rickshawalas, keeping a mobile because they can get somebody to say, "Arey, yahan pe rickshaw ki zarorat," they can go there. So it enhances their productivity. But it could be just a status symbol, and they could be substituting the child's nutrition by a mobile. We don't know what is happening. No, I am saying we need to understand this more carefully in a nuanced manner, what exactly is happening on the ground. All right? Shall I proceed? Okay, this is, I am going to rather rush through this. Development context with which I am fairly certain you are familiar. Population is rising. We used to give an estimate of 158 crores, at which level population of India will stabilize. Looks like we are going to overshoot that. Probably 170, 180 crores, thereabout we might reach, because we are already at 125, 130, and the pyramid has not completely inverted yet, so we might go a little beyond that. Stagnant rural economy, unable to sustain households and to meet their aspirations. This is a kind of repeated point. Large scale migration to urban, again repeated point, but the latter, therefore urban mess, unplanned urbanization and urban mess, ghettoization and rising urban poverty. These are consequences of large scale migration, which can be temporary, can be circular, can be quasi-permanent, can be permanent. So, huge numbers of swaths of people coming in, settling down at the periphery, living in pathetic conditions. There was a report by TISS, I don't know who, by some London university or something, about conditions in which people in Mahul in Mumbai are living a few days back, and saying that they are staying in such pathetic conditions. So that's what I mean by urban mess. All right? This is a new problem. Rising population of elderly without adequate care. By the way, this is not only a metro problem, that your children have gone abroad and leaving you behind at the mercy of your neighbors or nurses. This is a common phenomenon. I mean, what I am depicting now, that I am well off, my son is in USA, my daughter is in Purdue, and I am living alone with my wife. Now I am 75, 80, whatever, and therefore my mobility is restricted, my ability to go to the bank is, I got cataract, I am probably developing Parkinson's and so on and so forth. So I am at the mercy of the neighbors and the nurses. This is a rich urban elite elderly phenomenon. So don't think it's restricted only to that. There is swaths and swaths of elderly, both in not so well off urban area, urban people, and a whole lot of rural people. As the longevity improves, you know, from 53, which was the life expectancy when we became independent, it's already gone to 67, and in certain classes, and it's not very difficult to see people who are in 78, 90, 85, something like that, you know, large numbers, and without adequate care. This is definitely, I mean, so in that sense we are becoming like Europe, in a country of the elderly, or Japan, where the number of elderly is very, very large. That has huge amount of economic and social consequences, which probably will, some of you as social entrepreneurs might like to understand, analyze, see what can be done with it. It has economic consequences because the elderly are not in a productive age, so a smaller proportion of the young have to support a larger proportion of the elderly. So it has a larger national question. It's a social issue, of course. The elderly become very easy prey for the unscrupulous. You know, and any number of cases of the elderly couples getting mugged or whatever keep being reported from many cities. And therefore, the new sector of opportunity comes up for social enterprises. How do we look after these elderly as an enterprise or as even a routine NGO. And people are doing. And in fact, Trust itself is supporting a geriatric care program now, and we are trying to evolve what can be done. And there are people who have come up looking at some of these issues. And the last point, more and more people are becoming assertive about their entitlements. Simultaneously, the poorly governed state unable to cater to those entitlements. So, on one hand, the awareness is rising, and the other, the capacity or willingness to deliver to those entitlements is either stagnant or problematic. And you know, the UPS decade gave so many more entitlements than earlier were legally binding on the state. Right to education, right to food, right to health, so on and so forth. Right to health, of course, was not formally enshrined, but some others were. Right to work, etc. were. I have nothing against it. I am just, as I said, doing a clinical depiction of what the reality is. One can be very assertive that this is the way to go, and that's what the whole rights-based people would assert. But the simultaneous reality is that poorly governed state unable to meet the demands. This is also a reality. You know that budgets for NREJ are not rising, and budgets for this is shrinking or whatever. So the state is not able to deliver on the entitlements promised to them by the law. Okay? So this is our development context. Any dispute on any one of these? So much of this probably is kind of rehash of what you already know. But as I said, that it makes sense at times just to repeat what we have around us in order to figure out what